Miguel Conner. Welcome to The Container.
Thanks for having me.
I would love to just start by saying thank you because your Aeon Byte show is it's routinely one of my most listened to podcasts, and a lot of the guests you have on, it's just these conversations are so interesting, and I think you offer a space where really like cool, far out perspectives get to be shared, and so I want to start with gratitude there. Yeah.
No, well, thanks. Glad it brought. It's of use in your journey, your spiritual journey.
Yeah. So I guess you could maybe just start us off. I'm going to ask the big, broad question, and we can start tearing into it. What is Gnosticism?
It's something your listeners and viewers should run away from immediately. Don't take the red pill. Do not take the red pill, because your life will never be the same. But that's the whole point, right? It's better just to live in some comforting lie or whatever works for you, and putt through life and make it at the end and see what happens on the other side, right? So why go to war with your own self and these beings called Archons? Why be ostracized and never be the same person again? Which has been pretty much the story of my life. But as far as Gnosticism, I like what Stephen Davis, scholar Stephen Davis, said on my show. It's the story of how God became us and how we can reverse the effects to return to being God. And I, of course, sometimes add, it's the story of how God went crazy and became us, and what we can do to regain our sanity. As the Gnostics said in their text, the way of ascent is the way of descent. It's about retracing your steps through self-knowledge, introspection, going back in time, seeing reality for what it is instead of what the lie that they gave us. So that's sort of I don't know what we call the TikTok, YouTube short version.
Yeah.
But for a longer version, I would say Gnosticism is, yes, an ancient way of inner knowing. It posits that we have been cast in some sort of simulation, a coded simulation, on purpose to keep us trapped, to keep us asleep, because we as humans, and other Gnostics would say even animals, house this shard of infinity. They called it the divine spark. And this divine spark is something that's very precious, perhaps fuels the entire universe. And because we house it, we need to be kept asleep of this reality so that the powers that be can feed upon them. And the powers that be are those beings who sort of either took over the universe, rebelled against the higher God, and created this world to trap us. And our true home is beyond the stars, beyond all these dimensions, in this place the Gnostics might call the pleroma, the eternal realm, that houses the undivided unconsciousness, or the alien God, or the one of Plato. And we share, our divine spark is our shared essence with this being. And if through the mysteries and teachings of these apostles of light or Gnostic revealers that the one or the alien God sends down to this world, and there are many depending on the Gnostic sect. Some main one obviously was Jesus, Mary Magdalene, some said the Buddha, Simon Mega, Sophia. These teachings and mysteries can wake us up to the reality that we house a divine spark, and we are higher than the gods who control this universe, and we can commune with this higher being and wake up even further and help others wake up, and eventually unleash our divine spark and get out of this, as Philip K. Dick called it, the black iron prison, or samsara, or whatever you want to call it. And these beings, the Gnostics would call them Archons. The head of the Archons was known as the Demiurge, and whom they often associated with the tyrannical god, or the aspects of the the tyrannical aspects of the God of the Hebrew Bible, although some Gnostics said it could be other creator gods like Kronos, Saturn, and so forth. And to understand this, central to Gnosticism is the idea of gnosis. The Gnostics weren't too much into faith, but gnosis, Greek for knowledge, but it's a special type of direct experiential knowledge, a knowledge of who we truly are at our depths. As Elaine Pagel said in her book, The Gnostic Gospels, to know ourselves is to know God. And it is also a direct experience, again, with these higher form, this higher intelligence or consciousness. So that, in essence, is Gnosticism. There are other features we can talk about, like an insistence on a divine feminine principle, reincarnation, a penchant for deconstructing the ancient myths and texts, very much like, I don't know, Christopher Nolan does with the Odyssey, or we all do it, or people do it with Batman, to find new insights and new angles that can help us wake us up. So I think at its core, Gnosticism is shamanistic, and I mean shamanistic in a way it is an experiential movement or philosophy. Yes, we can talk philosophically about, hey, this sounds like we're Neo in the Matrix. Hey, this is cool. But at the end of the day, the true gnosis is that experience with the higher worlds, that true awakening of our own divinity, and how this divinity, with love and compassion, will help others wake up to their own potential.
That last part really resonates with me, how Gnosticism can create sort of a posture of adventure. It's spiritual adventure in a way.
There was one meme that made me laugh, and I can't stop laughing, and it says Gnosticism is just Dungeons and Dragons themed Christianity. That's all it is. I think they're right in a way. So.
Yeah. It's really an interesting way to sort of resolve the tension, I think, in the Bible. In like Roman Catholic Mass, you get the Old Testament reading and the New Testament reading, and you cannot help notice that the Old Testament God sort of is a heel, and he's sort of in wrestling terminology, he's like a heel who does a face turn and then becomes really good. And Gnosticism gives this lens that like resolves all the complicated stuff there in such an interesting way that then it's very exciting. It's an adventure. It's like this call to adventure.
Yeah, it sort of answers the questions that many had. I used to be Roman Catholic. I still go to Mass because I love it. I admit I love going to Mass. My wife is Roman Catholic, very devout, but it does answer a lot of the questions, why would the behavior of the God of the Old Testament, what was his damage, Heather? Why does it seem that the snake in the garden is kind of the good guy and Adam and Eve are the victims? They did nothing wrong. Why does it seem that Mary Magdalene and Jesus should be an item when they're so close? I mean, so close. And a lot of the questions sort of Gnosticism answered because their texts were already assuming this and answering this even before the Bible was put together. And again, the difference is Jesus in the New Testament, in the canonical Bible, he's there to save us from sin, to redeem us from sin and cleanse us out. The Gnostic Jesus is different. He's here to bring us information to wake us up. So that's, you might say, some of the differences that you have. But yeah, I think Gnosticism certainly, for the seeker, answers a lot of questions. I mean, again, my wife has read the text and had to hear my babbling about it for years, and she's very happy being a Roman Catholic. It satisfies her soul, and that's all that matters, right? To each his own. We all have our path.
My experience of Gnosticism is that I can kind of hold it in a way that's different than the Roman Catholic Church would ask you to hold the catechism or something. Like, I struggle to actually hold the catechism the way I'm asked to. It's like very received and very like that's the way it is. And then Gnostic texts seem to be handled more with way more liberty or something. They're more. I when I listen to Gnostics talking, it's way more applied and sort of like you were talking about with breaking down a Batman film or something. It's like really just like literary analysis that gets, but in this myth space. So I'm kind of curious about that, like this different way of holding myth that Gnostics have. Like, can you give us some like more meat on there?
Well, I mean, what did Gershom Scholem say about the Kabbalah? It's the revenge of the myth. Because we really lost the power of the myth that the ancients knew it. Joseph Campbell said, "Religion is just myth misunderstood. Myth is the history behind the history. It's something that never was but always is. It's that great lesson behind things. It's that place right before the realm of symbols and archetypes and unconscious energies and so forth. So it leads to a lot of wholeness and insight into our lives. So the Gnostics, of course, were the masters of myths. Yes, they had their experiences, what they saw, but they were playing with these myths because in a way it was a form of psychology and therapy and insight into the individual. And I don't see, I remember probably one of my greatest awakening was when I was a kid and I used to tell my mom about the Old Testament. I'm like, what's this shit? You know, it was talking snakes and floods and all that. And my mom said, oh, these were just the myths of the ancient Hebrews. And I was off to the races. I was like, this is awesome. This is, again, like watching a good movie. You don't take it literally, but you do try to take the lessons, the universal lessons and the personal lessons that it will tell you. Again, people who go, the Odyssey has been so endearing because it is a type of myth that has served the soul of the tribe, of the people and the individual for thousands of years. And the Gnostics were really the masters of myth because they were, some people say, well, they were doing like fan fiction or whatever. No, they were playing with the different mythologies. And some of them said these were right. They said, no, Moses didn't get the right message from God. He got it all wrong. We have the right message. The Garden of Eden story is completely wrong. The snake is the good guy. And when and Adam and Eve were trapped there as slaves and so forth. And, history might prove it, right? Because obviously the Garden of Eden story is taken from the Anunnaki. Where Enki engineers these humans, or from the Greek myths, where Zeus tells Prometheus we need a slave base, so he commands Prometheus to create humans as servants, and you see that in so many myths. So that's where all these myths might be pointing to even a real history behind history. History, myth, but maybe there's a real history that we humans at some point were really the servants of some sort of race or entities, or we still are. I mean, the Gnostics would say, well, no, we still are, unfortunately. Jesus was not able to break the Archons completely, as Paul writes, right? Paul writes about Archons, right? Powers and principalities, rulers, Greek Archons, the God of this world. The Epistle of John says the entire world is under the yoke of the evil one and whatever. And the Gnostics would say, no, Jesus wasn't here to break this. He was here to awaken those who wish to awaken. So you see this story, but yeah, the power of myth is so enriching. You just got to enjoy the ambiguity and the interchange that it creates with you. Something like, linear language is kind of a modern invention, but our minds still probably work best with symbols and images and so forth. That's really and storytelling. That's really the core of the human mind and how it's better to how it works better and adapts and is able to deal with this world.
I love that approach. I call that working the tech. Like, just work the tech. You came here as an animal with a certain structure, and the myth is, that's the technology works with that. That's the code.
Yeah, there's a story I always love where there's a rabbi reading the story of the flood to his son before bed. Why would that put him to sleep? I have no idea, but he's reading the story, and the son goes, Papa, did that ever happen? And the rabbi goes, well, I don't know if it happened, but it's true. See what I'm saying? It's a
Right.
very
Mm-hmm.
nuanced thing that this thing is true. Whether you see floods across history, whether a flood means the drowning of our consciousness into and rising above our animal selves in the ark. There's so many ways to approach it, and that's where the joy is and the self-knowledge
Mm-hmm.
is.
Hmm. Well, how do you deal with the profound existential nausea that can come about from like uh kind of being in the ocean, sort of like I sometimes I think feel it. It's like when I hold myth this way, I feel like I'm in the ocean and nothing is really secure, and it's like it's this constant turnover, and like every time I think I can resolve something, it's like yes it is that, but it's also not that, it's this next, it's like yeah, how do you work that?
Well, the ego wants certainty, right? I mean, that's just a natural evolutionary trait. It wants to know when food's coming. It wants to know when it's time to procreate. It wants to know what shelter is. That's his job. You could call it, beyond Jungian ideas, you could call it the left brain. It's the part of us that wants certainty, that sees patterns, that wants everything ordered, and that's fine. Without it, we wouldn't survive. But as some have said, there is a part of our brain, the right brain, that deals with, again, it deals with myth and symbol and mysticism, and in a language that we cannot understand, and is able to go to places that the left brain or a rational brain cannot understand and cannot resolve. But this is an important part of being a human being. We human beings are spiritual by nature. We are storytellers, and part of us is already in another world. So I think it's a matter of just telling your ego, you got to embrace the ambiguity. The important is the inner transformation. Are you feeling more whole? Are you feeling less anxious? Do you feel a deeper connection to the cosmos? Are you at peace with God? Are you nicer to your cat? Things like that, which are very important, which the ego might not doesn't care about because it is too busy dealing with reality and going to work and shopping and making sure we look good in front of our neighbors and so forth. So it's certainly a duality of our minds, our personalities. But again, I would say, yeah, embrace the ambiguity and don't try to understand the inner transformation. What did Frank Herbert, the author of Dune, say? Life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. And I think he's 100%
Hmm.
right.
Easy to say, Frank. Easy to
Yeah.
say.
Oh, it's like I said, it's a brutal journey because our ego and the powers that be of our society and in the spiritual world, what did Paul call it? That wickedness in high places. They want status quo. They want us to be nice little sheeple because we are the main course, and they don't want us asking too many questions. So
Hmm.
it ain't easy being free.
That has me wonder, on the topic of freedom. A lot of exoteric or maybe a like mainstream religious practice involves a lot of things you can do, and you do with others on a regular schedule. Uh, Obviously, Catholics and Protestants have church and on Sundays, and there's the Sangha and there's the Sabbath, and I'm curious, what are like Gnostic practices? Is there a culture of practice that you can enter into?
Well, there certainly is, but the Gnostics were they were very individualistic and very anarchist. They certainly seem to contend that all of us have a different spiritual constitution. So what they had was all these little small groups and lodges scattered around the Greco-Roman world. I contend Gnosticism is an Egyptian religion, and but all these lodges serve different types of people with different types of need. The culmination was always sort of an awakening, a mystical experience, often a flight outside of your body into these higher realms. But how they went about it was very different. And again, for example, in Egypt, there were some, these Gnostic sects would practice alchemy, but also sex rituals. Then you would go to Rome, and these Gnostics called the Valentinians were closer to Catholics. They believed in the Eucharist and so forth. Other Gnostics were into contemplation, meditation, entheogens, different types. Whoever wrote the Gospel of Thomas, which is a group of sayings, some have said you just sat around and somebody would read a saying by Jesus and you focus on it, and maybe somebody would be like, that aha moment, oh my God, I just woke up when Jesus said the kingdom is within you and it's outside of you and it's everywhere. So they had so many different practices, and sometimes that frustrates people because they'll ask me, well, what do I do? I say, I can't give you a list because you are you and I am me. There's no one size fits all. It's like health. I think we've learned from 2020 and other events that you can't just mass heal or treat a population. Everybody reacts differently to different things. Same with education. So the individual has to find what works for them, as long as, again, it's centered around the idea of gnosis, direct experiential knowledge of God and your true self, and a sort of an ecstatic state where you can get out of your ego and experience reality as it is. So I would say what you're gonna have to tell people what works for you. I mean, for me, I have a meditation practice, a prayer practice. I said I enjoy going to mass. I enjoy ayahuasca ceremonies. I have other things, but just because it works for me, it's not going to work for Jonathan. Jonathan has to figure out his own shit, right? It's like that's why you're here, not to have somebody tell you what to do, and you got to figure it out, man.
Yeah. It's interesting as you're talking, the Marxist part of my brain turns on and is like, there's this historic epoch we're moving into that feels really fit for that Gnostic approach, that we're entering a time where people have access to all of this information and they have relatively a lot of freedom and wealth, at least like in the West, especially. There's a lot of opportunity to kind of pursue whatever spiritual path is of interest to you in a way that just hasn't been true for maybe ever. And it's interesting to think of like the Nag Hammadi discovery in like the 40s where like a lot of these Gnostic texts got rediscovered, and it like primed us to have this available again. Yeah, I don't know. That comes up as I'm listening to you, that there's some way that it's our life and times are like particularly Gnostic or something, or fit for that style of spiritual life.
Yeah, I mean, in a way it's good, but all these choices also tend to be, there's a danger with it too, because there's just so much disinformation out there. So many, I guess the old days when a few religious controlling everything is off, but now you have a million gurus on YouTube selling their wares. So, and a lot of badly written blogs and videos. So there's always the good and the bad you have to deal with. Yes, there's certainly a lot of choices. Again, for anybody who asks about where does it start, I always say it's always simple. It's know thyself. That's where it starts, where it begins. And who are you at your deepest level? And I don't mean like I'm a Taurus who likes to play golf, or who are you beyond all those layers of lies and programming and bullshit that were created. That's where it starts. And when you hit that, when you hit your soul, as Carl Jung would say, then the path becomes obvious. Then the choices of what you need to do will appear. Then you'll start listening to your body. The body keeps the score and the body doesn't lie. Often, many of my practices happen because my body seems to react a certain way. You know, we do have neurons in our heart, we have neurons in our gut. And, you know, the gut feeling actually is a real thing. And something in my body will reject something, and something in my body will make me attracted to something. So it always starts with self-knowledge, that's for sure. And that's the end game. That's why we are here in this world, to know ourselves. That's one of the great maxim on the Temple of Delphi is know thyself. And there really is nothing else. I also like, I was reading a Nag Hammadi text called The Dialogue of the Savior, and Judas comes to Jesus. Now, he's talking about Judas Thomas.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no,
Oh, okay.
no, not Judas Iscariot. I don't think the Gnostics, except for the Gospel of Judas, the Gnostics had no idea about Judas Iscariot. He's just not in their literature, he's just whoever. But he goes and he goes, Master, what is the beginning of the path? And Jesus answers, love and kindness. So that's it. And he says, because if one of those things existed with the Archons, then this world would not have fallen into wickedness. And as a Catholic, you could say, yeah, if Satan just had a little bit of love and kindness, things would have turned out completely different, right? So that is also the beginning of the path too. I would like to remind people. And as far as information, I was reading this quote by Mark Twain about the double bind. He says, people who don't read the newspaper are uninformed. People who read the newspaper are misinformed. It's like, what do you do?
Oh, it's so interesting how if you're a peasant who has like a single religious expression available to them really in their culture, and you kind of live the calendar of your church and are in that reality, the central skill is obedience, or like this the like beauty in kneeling and like turning over and self-overcoming through that process. But then it's interesting on the Gnostic path, as I'm hearing you, it's really the skill becomes discernment of really learning how to hear your heart and hear like, this is good. It's like this, it's, like this thing is something you want for reasons that aren't like kind and loving. They're, like I know my body has, I can really feel as someone in recovery. I had many years where I would like pursue things that my body wanted in a way that it also knew wasn't good or something. It's like there's and like sin in a I don't mean that in a judgmental way, but just in a non-aligned way. It was like, ooh, like I could really go into this little pattern of like hitting the button and getting the light to go on. But then there's stuff that my body knows is like, this is really good and is going to hurt and be hard and be a struggle too. But it's like, I can feel the love in it or something. So that's interesting how discernment on a somatic level becomes like the art of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the body don't lie. Our minds will lie.
Yeah. That reminds me of something. My grandfather was a large animal veterinarian. And I never got to meet him, but my mom quotes him all the time. He would say about horses, he would say, they never lie. And I think about like the body in us is like the animal that we are. And the animal is like the horse. Like the horse will never lie. The animal you are never lies to you.
Nope. No.
So I kind of want to go into something that I think people might not know about Gnostics is I think Gnostics are just having a lot more fun. And what I mean by that is like if you look at a lot of religious talking about, say, media or something, a lot of that takes the form of hand wringing or pearl clutching or like, is this okay? It'll be like, is Harry Potter okay to read or something? Whereas like then you get into like I'll listen to episodes with you and Christopher Knowles, and it's just like rock and roll, motherfuckers. We are watching X-Files and like seeing into reality, and like I kind of, and I know you've written about Elvis Presley, and you have this sort of I feel like pop culture is this really interesting imaginal realm that Gnostics are able to go into, and they have the tools to get enlightened there and awakened there. So I kind of want to go into pop culture. Yeah.
Well, Stephen Heller, the Gnostic bishop, he passed this year, so rest in peace. But he had a quote that said, "Any serious artist is already half a Gnostic." Because as an artist, you're going deep within yourself, and you're going to the underworld of your life, and in that underworld, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of insights, but you're also figuring out that the life that you were told you were supposed to live was a lie, and any artist is always sort of breaking open reality. That's what Nietzsche said. He said, "No artist tolerates reality." So an artist is always trying to break it down and see what's behind the veil. So pop culture done at its best in music, movies, and so forth, that's what it will. Those are the themes it will hit. It will hit a lot of those Gnostic themes about being trapped in a false world, being ruled by haughty beings who only want to feed or exploit us, the fact that we've forgotten our true selves, and all these other, again, themes and tropes that really are part of the Gnostic ethos. So you have it there, and science fiction works even better because, as again, Chris Knowles once said, the Gnostics were history's first UFO cult. Eric Davis agreed too, because when you read their text, it's like you've got these Lovecraftian monsters ruling the stars, and some of these beings, you can travel on clouds, and you're traveling through these stargates in the constellation Virgo and so forth, and it's got universes of light and all this other stuff. So Gnosticism certainly has that, as Eric Davis said, that sci-fi sensibility, if you would, that UFO vibe. So it works. I think that's why Gnostic themes are so popular today, whether it's the work of Philip K. Dick or modern classics like The Matrix or The Truman Show, or even shows like Severance and so forth. In fact, the big show today, or the big cultural event, was it The Amazing Digital Circus on YouTube? I think like it got 7 billion views. My kids, all under 14, love it. And my daughter's like, "Daddy, it's a Gnostic series, it is." And she explained the demiurge and all that. So even Stranger Things, before they ruined the mythology, before they ruined it in this last season, was very Gnostic, where Vecna serves as the demiurge and Eleven is sort of a Sophianic figure. I mean, there's all these other themes. So Gnosticism works very well in our modern times because it has that sci-fi sensibility. It aligns well with ideas of simulation and quantum physics. It aligns well with understanding how the human psyche really is sort of a labyrinth, a fragmented labyrinth. The Archons often act more like algorithms and AI in their behavior in the Gnostic text than they do demons. Again, they're just trying to control the world and eat from us and keep the status quo. So over and over, it just works.
I remember as a teen when I first discovered Philip K. Dick, and that experience of the first time you get that Philip K. Dick trick gets pulled, where all of a sudden the universe is not the way you thought it was. There's that like dizzying turn. I became so obsessed with him that and as I'm hearing you talk about all of these major stories that have these Gnostic themes, like The Matrix or Truman Show or Stranger Things, or it really has me in touch with the way that Gnosticism is an instinct or something in us. Like there's like you could eliminate all Gnostic writing and it would just show up again. It would be reinvented. That's spooky.
Yeah, for sure. That's what, yeah, I think scholar Robert Price said. It's because we know it's true. In some way, we know it's true. I think, I would say Jesus is the greatest story ever told. If you removed it, you would still have some sort of Jesus. That's what Augustine said. He said the story of Jesus has existed from the beginning of time. Again, these are eternal archetypes and universals, and that are in the stars, that are also within our psyche. So they're always going to be there, just as long as we're here negotiating with reality.
Something that I think is difficult for a lot of people with Gnosticism is the way that the bad guys are kind of winning at the moment in Gnosticism. That's sort of the place you find yourself in the story, is not at the end. There's something very comforting about the bad, tough stuff already happened about 2,000 years ago, and we're living in the hallelujah, happily ever after part or something.
Oh God, is this the hallelujah part? God. No, things haven't worked out well for humanity, have they? I mean, we've had a lot of good inventions, and we've evolved and so forth, but this is not heaven on earth or anything close to utopia. The Gnostics would say, "See, we told you." This place is ruled by the Archons. This is a simulation. They're in control. Some Gnostics had a more softer view. They said, this is a cosmic gym, and we are here to work out and be better and challenge ourselves, or just experience different things. So, but others said, no, as long as this place will always be ruled by the God of this world, and that's just the way because it's the world of matter. Our job is to wake up and get out. That's it. Or I would say help others wake up and get out. Some Gnostics would say, well, we could heal the universe, but that would take a concerted effort of all of us to wake up. Again, love and kindness. So I would say that the Gnostics are right, because this is a world of temporality. Buddha would agree. This is a world, yes, there's a lot of beauty, there's kindness, but it's also a world where we are going to die, we are going to suffer, and other animals and creatures will suffer too. So what's the point in being in a world of temporality when we can experience our true inheritance, which is eternity, pure eternity, pure timelessness. So, yeah, I would say I would agree with the Gnostics. And
that material world as a gym, that kind of interpretation as like this sort of spiritual gymnasium, connects to this other deep instinct in us of reincarnation. And I know like there is some reincarnation appears in some Gnostic thinking. I wonder if you could shed a little light on how that works, because I know my if I use my body as the discerning tool, then there is something about reincarnation that feels really true. That just feels like the way this like tumble through lives feels really true. For whatever that's worth. But how does that play into Gnostic thinking?
I think most of the Gnostic sects believed in some sort of reincarnation. They certainly, of course, they didn't agree on the mechanics. One thing the Gnostics were very good at is disagreeing with each other on everything. Because again, there were such anarchists and individualists that's just the way they were. So, but they had some doctrine of reincarnation. Some said that we only leave this world when we are sick of this world and we've experienced everything. And Jesus was simply a person who finally had woken up. He'd experienced everything, and he'd woken up to all of his lives, and now he was enlightened. Others said, no, you have to get rid of all the bad sin or energy as you go through the lives, purify yourself, and then you can rise to the different levels, higher dimensions. Others said, no, it's just about you will continue to be reincarnated. And if you could turn more into you have two choices. You can, if you reincarnate and go to a better life each time, you will rise and eventually turn into sort of a Christian bodhisattva like Jesus, and you will help others wake up. But if you keep choosing the material things at life after life, eventually you will just burn into extinction because you've chosen the wrong path after countless lives. So they had different views of reincarnation, but again, they didn't agree. I know there's some sort of rebirth, but I also don't know the exact mechanics. I've never had a past life experience, maybe a sense, a connection to a place or a people or something, but I've never had anything like that. So
There's something about past lives that when people start to talk about it in a lot of clarity, I get a little, I don't know what it is. Maybe there's judgment in my heart or something. I get a little iffy or something. But yeah, reincarnation itself, the rhythm of that and the idea of doing a little bit better each time, that just feels right to me. I don't know.
well, it's very insidious. It's just as bad as eternal damnation because what you're doing, I mean, the Gnostics, like the Buddhists, would say reincarnation is something very bad because you're getting a memory wipe every time. So it's not like
Right.
Jonathan and Miguel started 3 years old. It's like, oh, in my other life, I was an alcoholic. I should have gone to meetings early. You don't get that.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to just start over. And some say that, yeah, reincarnation is a tool of the Archons because if they keep us forever recycling and memory wiping us, then it's easier for them to control us.
Whoa. Yeah. I keep forgetting about that. The Archons, the devilish design of it, which does feel sort of true to an emotional reality of life, that there are these wicked little things that we get stumbled into psychologically, but also economically, and like at every level of life, there are these little cul-de-sacs you find yourself on that are kind of designed that way to get kind of lost in these eddies of self-destruction or small-mindedness. Yeah, so, and every time you bring up the Archons, it's like a light coming on again. It's like I've been mind wiped every time. And oh yeah, the Archons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How long have you been on this path with Gnosticism and this view?
2006, I think I started studying it seriously. So yeah, a good 20 years. It's a 21 year. What year are we in? Yeah, 20 years. It's 2026. So yeah, I feel I'm just begun because there's just so much. It's some have said because again, Gnosticism's very poetic, mythical, and anarchist view. It's more like a type of jazz. You just got to keep doing it until you can feel it in your bones. Or the blues, what did Jimi Hendrix said? Blues is easy to understand but hard to feel. So that's been my quest, and that's been my prime directive. And that's what I'm doing.
I wonder you would be open to kind of talking about where you were spiritually before and the moment of awakening to this sort of viewpoint. What?
Well, it's always been there. I think I was always a very curious kid. And my father was an atheist. My mother was a Roman Catholic, and but she was very ecumenical. So was my family. So it was always she was always wanting to expose me to different myths and religions and so forth. And for a long time, I was always what I call myself a spiritual hitchhiker. I would study this religion and study Hinduism, go to an ashram, study Buddhism, and start going to a temple. I just kept trying different things because even if I was happy, because I wanted to understand what other faiths were about and then what their experiences were and what tools they had to offer. And so I did that for a long time, and it really was Gnosticism that philosophically answered a lot of my questions. I mean, I don't think any system is perfect. Everyone, they all have holes. I don't know why people have to think that a religion has to be logical when it's the opposite. It's got to be illogical to a certain extent, but because we're dealing again with the right side of our brain, the mystical side, the non-verbal side of our brain. So, but Gnosticism answered a lot of the questions, and there were certainly experiences I had with ayahuasca and meditations which supported my Gnostic worldview. And of course, pop culture has done a great job, whether it's Blade Runner or The Matrix or all of these other films and TV shows that kind of show us what reality truly is about.
About how old were you when you really started to get into Gnosticism?
Well, 20 years ago, God, how old was I? 30, probably my late 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just started reading the Nag Hammadi. I had like this. God, it was such an intense year when I first started really delving into it, because I remember watching Donnie Darko for the first time, very Gnostic film, and it blew me away. And I remember going back to Portugal, to my hometown, and having a really intense UFO experience. Then I did a ayahuasca ceremony, and I left my body, and I met this ancient Gnostic god called Abraxas. I mean, everything just sort of fell into place, and that's often what happens to people. So my life didn't get easier. It actually got a lot harder because of that, because the universe or the powers that be will just throw stuff at you to keep you from being on your path. But there are beings that will work with you to make sure you can get through this. But it seemed this was my path of learning, and this is the path I wanted to share with others, hence the podcast and the books and all that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that sounds like a wild year, like a really massive initiation to pass through. I wonder how common it is. I don't know if it's common, but I do imagine that there are people who aren't able to fully express that. And then I think about this mission of spreading the word of Gnosticism as kind of giving people language to be like, there's a way to talk about this. There's a way to do something with these experiences.
Yeah. I always tell people, write your own gospel, live your own myth. You don't have to even explain it. Write a story, write your dreams, draw what you saw in your dreams and your visions. Yeah, it can be expressed through art, through myth, through storytelling. You don't have to come up with some sort of logical explanation, or I saw this, therefore God is this. You don't. Embrace the ambiguity.
Before we go, could you tell listeners, viewers, how to get more of your work?
Well, I would say, oh my God, I've got so many sites and places now. After 20 years, I guess, God, I would put it on the show notes, man. But probably my website, thegodabovegod.com, probably would be the best place. And then you have avenues, whether you want to get my Elvis book. I have a course on Gnosticism, the podcasts, Gnostic Tarot, blogs, videos. I got the whole multimedia shebang, including social media, so your viewers can go where they want to go.
Awesome. The Gnostic media empire you've built is quite impressive.
I don't know about that. Just trying to keep the customer satisfied.
That's right. Well, Miguel Conner, thank you for coming on to The Container.
Enjoyed it. Appreciate you having me on.
With that, The Container is now closed.